Can you afford to raise your family in Victoria? In today's video, we're going to get real about the numbers. I'm Sean P. I'm a real estate agent who lives in Victoria and makes videos on YouTube to help people understand our market. And Victoria itself has a reputation for being an expensive place to live. But I think the bigger question is, can you afford it? Because that means something different to everyone. And most importantly, will it be worth it? Let's get into it. Okay, before we start digging in on the cost of living in Victoria, one thing that I think is important is to highlight what you get from living here. Because if you only look at the cost and you don't look at what you get, it's really hard to understand what the value is. Because value is just the balance between those two things. What you pay and what you receive represents value. And Victoria is a destination market for a good reason. It's an amazing place to live, and that's part of the reason why it's gotten so expensive. It's safe and family friendly. We've got great educational facilities. We have close proximity to the outdoors, like hiking, the ocean, beaches. And also importantly, we have a lot of really solid social infrastructure. Things like recreation centers and trails are really well built out and maintained. So people move here because the perks essentially equate to living a better life. All right, let's break it down. Now, the reality is that Victoria did get this reputation for a reason. It does cost more to live here than some other parts of Canada, and it costs a lot more if you're going to compare it with other more affordable parts of Canada, particularly if you're looking at rural areas and smaller cities. So if you look at that and you compare Victoria, I can start just by saying that general everyday living expenses are going to be somewhere between 1.5 to 2 times as expensive. So things like clothing, groceries, and gas will cost a lot more. Now, I'll say from personal experience moving here, I did not come from a smaller rural location. I came from Canada's largest city, Toronto, and it wasn't that. It was probably more like 25 or 30% more for everyday items. Now, when we look at that, it does change things, but one of the things that I'll remind you is that you offset a lot of that because you're not spending as much entertaining yourself, because a big draw in moving to Victoria is that our entertainment is just the vast, rugged, beautiful nature that we have here. That's why people move here in the first place. Okay, moving on. Childcare is another significant consideration. If you have kids and you're bringing them here and you're not retired, obviously you need to have somewhere to have them cared for during the day. Well, you're going to need to factor probably 20 to 30% more than what you're spending right now. Again, if you're in a large urban center, it might be apples for apples. It could even be less. When I compare costs that I know people were spending in Toronto with Victoria, it's actually lower here. Now, real estate is a hot item, and we do not have a huge stock of homes, and they're expensive. It's a beautiful place to live, so our market is competitive, and it tends to be a resilient market, meaning that when other parts of Canada might be in a downturn, Victoria just chugs along because we're not economically driven to the same extent as other urban centers. This is a lifestyle market. People are moving here all the time, regardless of what the economy is doing. Real estate, you're going to find, will cost anywhere from 1.2 to 1.5 times as much. And that'll vary depending on how you measure it and when you take your sample. But in general, expect that if you're moving from a smaller, less competitive part of Canada, it's going to take a little bit to get in the door here. Now, I moved from Toronto, so I keep on sharing my experience. I felt like it was pretty apples and apples. I was living outside of the core in Toronto. I live in Saanich, which is outside of the core of Victoria, and I actually got more house for the same money than what I would have gotten in my old neighborhood. Okay, so if we just wrap this all together, I'd say that you should expect that living expenses on a whole for everything will be about 25% more than most other parts of Canada. And of course, this is hugely subjective to where you're coming from. Now, it's useful to talk about averages, but the truth is that that's only going to give you a general idea of what to expect. And the reality is that people with all different sizes of budgets call Victoria home, and that's because they get creative in where they live, how they live, and what they expect in terms of their housing. Now, if you want to live in Victoria and you want to get the most value for your dollar when it comes to your housing, there are 3 areas I think you should consider that represent an excellent choice in getting more bang for your buck. The first area I want to talk about is Saanich. And Saanich is where I live. It's a beautiful community. It's so close to Victoria that most people just consider it Victoria. And you can be downtown or at the airport north of the city in 20 minutes. So it's about halfway. Saanich, you'll get larger homes, you get quieter streets, you're tucked right in with a ton of wildlife, and we have so many different communities to choose from that if you have different priorities, there's almost certainly going to be a match for you. Now, zooming out, if we look about halfway between the downtown core and the west shore where Langford and Colwood are located, you'll find View Royal. And this is the second one that I think most people should take a closer look at. This is a great location because it has great commuter access to downtown, but it's still really easy to get out from the city if you want to go north for the weekend. It also is a very quiet community because it's kind of tucked off the highway and just about nobody goes there unless they live there. So it's an area that is kind of flying under the radar. It is tucked right between the Gorge, the Esquimalt Lagoon, and Thetis Lake Park. So you are surrounded by nature and you'll have quiet streets with larger homes. And again, you get more bang for your buck if you live here than if you push to be close to downtown. Now, if you really want to get a lot of mileage, one of the areas that everyone is talking about is called Royal Bay. And this is right next to the Esquimalt Lagoon in the Colwood area. This is an area that over the past years has been developed absolutely beautifully. It's a waterfront community. It's a master planned area, so it has lots of dedicated park space and really great infrastructures being added every year. And you'll get large, newer homes for great prices if you choose to live here. In fact, it's one of the areas almost invariably when people are thinking about moving here, they always ask, and that's for a good reason. So is the juice worth the squeeze? Well, the reality is you ask that question to 10 people and you'll probably get 10 different answers. But here's my take on it. If you're moving from a notoriously expensive market like Toronto, Vancouver, and frankly Calgary at this point, chances are when you get here, you're not really going to notice as much of a difference as you might have expected. Now, if you're moving from a larger urban center, like perhaps Winnipeg or something that has a reputation for being more affordable, you will notice a difference. But many people who have made moves like that felt that it was worth it because of the lifestyle perks. Now, I already went through them, so I'm not going to do that again. And we have lots of videos you can watch on the perks of living here, but you get a lot of value for your dollar when you live in such an incredible place. And most people feel that it's worth it to give up a little bit on some of the creature comforts that they might have spent their money on in exchange for what they get just from being part of this community we have here. Now, if you're moving from a more affordable area, say like a rural area that has a really low cost of living, you're gonna have to make this decision for yourself because it could represent a significant change in your lifestyle, and only you can really decide if that's something that you're comfortable with. Me, I'm happy I made the move, and just about everyone I know who came here is here for the long run because it's a fantastic place to call home. As always, I'm so grateful that you took the time to watch this. Now, if you have a question or you want to relate this to your plans, I'd love to get into it with you. You can use the link in my description to grab some time to chat with me. As always, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for our next video where we're going to contrast your choice if you plan to decide between living in Victoria or Vancouver, which is also a great place to live. So stay tuned, and again, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.